In the grim darkness of the far future, explosive rounds whiz through the air, chainsaws rev hungrily, and armoured feet hammer against the broken ground. The indomitable angels of death wage unrelenting war against the unstoppable plague marines in Warhammer 40.000 Kill Team. Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how to paint the Angels of Death and Plague Marines from the Warhammer 40.000 Kill Team beginner set using our paints. The paints I'll be using are on screen now. You can also find the paint list in the description below. We also have a list of the additional equipment we've used, but you can use whatever brushes you feel most comfortable with. If you're new to painting or want to brush up on your skills, you can check out our Get Started page to learn all about our paints and techniques. Before we get painting, we first need to build our models. Building them is super simple and we can use the guide that comes in the box to help us. You'll notice that you can just pop the miniatures off the sprue, gently push at the connection points, give them a wiggle and the bits will come off for you. There's no need for any glue, simply line up the correct pieces and carefully push them together. You should have these built in no time at all. Then we can crack on with painting. When it comes to the terrain in the box, it's a real treat. For the first time ever, you can find ready-to-use terrain that is absolutely awesome and super simple to put together. These pieces are super detailed and easily pop out of their frames. They have connection slots that make it super simple to slide them together to get a nice solid and secure piece of scenery that is quick to build. The added benefit of the MDF is that you can quickly take it apart and store it away without taking up too much hobby space either. There are a few bits of equipment I'm going to need before I can get started. These include a water pot, paint brushes, servo scale palette, paper towel, texture tool, tufts, and of course, the paints I'm using. Right, with all that said, let's get painting. Before I start painting, a miniature needs something called an undercoat. This is where you apply a paint to the whole model, and this then acts as a foundation for our other paints to stick to. I'll be using my pot of Macragge Blue base paint to do this. Don't worry if you haven't heard of undercoating before, it's really simple. It's normal for the paint to settle and separate in the pot over time, so give it a good shake until it's a smooth, even colour. While you're shaking, be sure to hold your finger or thumb over the lid to prevent it from opening accidentally. Then push the lid until it clicks into the tab at the back to help keep the pot open while in use. Wet your brush with a little bit of water, wipe away any excess on a paper towel so that it's damp but not sodden, and then load the bristles with a little bit of paint from the reservoir inside the lid. Take care not to get paint all the way up to the metal at the end of the brush, which is called the ferrule, as this can damage the brush as it dries. Just about halfway up the bristles is fine. Put the paint onto your palette to control how much is on your brush, and then we can start applying it to our model. You can be really messy at this stage. Just make sure you get Macragge Blue into every little nook and cranny and flat surface. You'll notice that the first coat might seem to struggle to stick to the plastic. Don't worry, just keep going and cover as much as you can. Once the first coat is dry, apply a second coat in the exact same way. You'll find the coverage of the paint is much better this time around. When that's dry, apply a third coat if you think you need to. The end result should look something like this, with the model covered evenly in the blue. Well done, you've just undercoated your first model, and now your Ultramarines captain is well on his way to being painted. Alright, with the model fully undercoated, I'm going to move on. This is where I'm going to start to base coat. Base coating is what we call it when we're blocking in the main colours of our model. The paints I'm using for this are known as base paints. For my first paint, I'll be using Abaddon Black, a base paint, applying a little bit of water to it to help it flow off the brush, and then picking out the inside of the cloak, gun casing, ribbing between the armour panels, leather details, and the tabard. When painting the inside of the cloak and the armour ribbing, I'm just taking a bit more care so that I don't paint on the blue armour panels. If you do make a mistake here, just tidy back up with the previous colours. And there we go. With the Abaddon Black applied, we've done our first base coat. Now to move on to the next one. I'm now going to paint all of the details that I want to be gold. For this, I'll be using Retributor Armour, which is a metallic base paint. So I'm going to pick out the Aquila on the chest, the right knee detail, any trinkets I can find, shoulder trim and wings, power fist detail, as well as the detail on top of his backpack, which is called an iron halo. Just as before, I'll be as careful as I can be when picking these out. If I make a mistake, I'll just tidy back up with the previous colours. With the gold done, I'm going to move on to doing the silver details next. Okay, I'm using lead belcher next, and I'm looking to paint the working metal areas of the gun, power fist, and any other little rivets and working metal areas on the rest of the armor. Just take a bit extra care with these details and try to be as neat as you can. Once you've finished picking out these details, I would advise changing the water in your water pot. This is because it will be full of small metallic flakes, and we don't want these getting into the rest of our paints. Okay, our metallic details are done. Now to pick out the rest of the base coats. We're almost done with our base coats, just a few more little details to do. Our next ones will be the tassels and wax seals that we can find, and we're using Screamer Pink to do this. Nice and easy details to do, just take your time and be as neat as you can. Awesome! Screamer Pink has really pumped some colour onto our model, and he's starting to look great. Next up is the skin and parchment. We're using the same paint for all of these areas. We'll be using Rakarth Flesh. Don't worry if you don't cover the area straight away with this paint. Just make sure the entire area has paint on it. Wait for it to dry completely and then come back to do another coat. Repeat this until you have a nice solid base coat. Rakarth Flesh takes a couple of layers to get full coverage, but it's totally worth it as it looks so good when completed. Our final detail to pick out on the Marine is the leather. So that will be any leather pouches or holsters that we can find, as well as his belt. For this, we're using Catachan Flesh. Once we're done with that, we'll then need to paint the soil that we can see on the base. We're using Catachan Flesh for this as well. Right, with that done, there's just one more base coat to go. The final detail to be base painted is the rock that he is standing on. For this, we're using Mechanicus Standard Grey. This is a great contrasting colour to our brown that we've used on the soil and really helps to make the base pop out. Make your way around the base, picking out all of the rocks and debris that you can see. When your first layer is dry, remember to do another in order to get good coverage. Brilliant! I'm going to move on to darkening all the recesses. For this, I'll use Agrax Earthshade over the entire miniature. This paint is different to the others because it is a shade paint. Shade paints are very thin and are designed to slightly tint flat surfaces of the miniature while settling into the recesses. You'll notice how this creates depth on the miniature by darkening down those recessed areas. Applying a shade is a quick and easy way to really take your paint job up a notch. We won't need to add any water to this paint, just take it straight from the pot, making sure there isn't too much on your brush. Agrax Earthshade works over many different base coats, so we can apply it over the whole model, even the base. When you're doing an all-over shade like this, work in small sections. We do this because it gives us enough time to fix any areas where we might have applied too much paint. You'll know when you've applied too much paint because you'll see that the paint is pooling in recesses and on larger flat surfaces, thus clogging up the awesome details of your model. Don't worry though. Fixing it is really easy. Just dry off your brush and soak up the excess paint with your dry bristles. Once the entire model has had Agrax Earthshade over it, let it stand and dry for around 30 minutes. When it's completely dry, just as a finisher, you can paint the base room as well. You can choose any color for this really, it's completely up to you. I'm going to pick Abaddon Black because I think it frames the miniature nicely on the gaming table. Congratulations! You've painted your first Space Marine of the Angels of Death Kill Team. You can follow these exact steps for the rest of the members of the Kill Team as well. Okay, with that done, you can leave your Angels of Death Kill Team members there, or you can follow these next optional stages I'm about to show you. I'm going to move on to doing an optional highlight. For this, I'm using Calgar Blue layer paint and a small dry brush to highlight the power armor. Layer paints are paints that have slightly less pigment in them that are specifically designed to layer over base paints for highlighting your models. Dry brushing is a great technique that allows you to quickly brighten the erased areas of your miniature and make your models stand out. Okay, let's grab our dry brush and dip the bristles into the reservoir in the lid. We just need enough to cover the tips of the hairs like so. To prepare the dry brush, take the paper towel and start removing the moisture from the paint by rubbing it in circular motions onto the paper. All we're going to do is gently brush over the top of the edges and details like so. Look at how it catches all those raised details, without getting the paint in the recesses. It's already starting to bring the miniature to life. The motion I've just used is called circular, but you can also use a directional motion.
Directional dry brushing uses the back and forth movements to catch long and flatter edges with ease. Just look at how the Calgar Blue paint is catching those armor edges and not totally covering all of the previous paints. Circular dry brushing helps with more organic or rounded details, allowing more of the color to cover those details. Fur and skin really benefit from this type of dry brushing. On my Space Marine here, it works really well for the backpack. And there we go, that step is done and my dry brush highlight looks great. Layer paints are very versatile, which means that they are fantastic for all sorts of different applications, and dry brush highlighting is no exception. Okay, I'll now move on to adding some optional adornment to the bases. The bases for these models from the Kill Team starter set have beautiful sculpted details on them already, so I'll not be applying any texture paint on them. However, I will be adding some tufts here and there on the bases. Tufts are a fantastic way of adding details to your bases, and they are super easy to use. They come with a little bit of sticky residue on the underside of them, so all I have to do is place them where I want them on the base and then use my texture tool to press them down into position. And there we go, my Angels of Death Kill Team Captain is complete. Okay, so for the Plague Marine, I'll be blasting through these steps this time as all the information you need has been covered already. Starting at the undercoating stage, and in this instance I'll be using Death Guard Green base paint as my undercoat. This paint is a perfect choice for use as it also happens to be the main colour of the Plague Marines. So it will also act as our base coat for the power armour. Try to avoid painting the same area repeatedly and let the first layer dry completely. Once it's done, come back to do another and repeat the process until you have a nice solid undercoat. Right, with the undercoat done, I now need to move on to base coating. I'm going to pick out all of the armor trim with Balthasar Gold base paint. I'm going to try to be as neat as I can here, avoiding getting it onto the power armor. Once the armor trim is done, there are a few extra areas on the weapon that I can pick out as well. Mainly the handles, some trims, as well as the back casing. Alright, that's our first metallic done. Now to move on to the silver details. For the silver metallics, I'm using lead belcher for this. So I'm looking to paint the working metals of the gun, as well as the backpack and any other little areas that I think would be silver metallic. When I'm finished with that, I'll change out the water in my water pot for some fresh water for the rest of the paints. Okay, let's crack on with the rest of the base coats. I'm now going to use Abaddon Black to pick out the gun casing and any piping that I can find. Abaddon Black will show up really starkly on any other details, so just try to be neat with this and don't forget to tidy up with the previous colours if you make a mistake. Awesome, you'll notice that your Plague Marine is really starting to come together at this point. Time to move on to some of the more gribbly bits. Okay, next up I'm using Rakarth Flesh to paint the little plague demon that is known as a Nurgling, as well as any horns and teeth that I can find on the armour of this model. This particular Plague Marine might not have teeth, but you definitely can find some on the other members of his kill team, so just use Rakarth Flesh for those. This one paint has really made the Nurgling pop out and look great. Alright, I'm now going to focus on the slimy goo and gunk that I can find on the model. For this I'll be using Averland Sunset. Slime and gunk can be found on just about all of the Plague Marines. It doesn't just have to be Averland Sunset. Feel free to paint it whatever colour you choose. They are your models after all. The advantage of using Averland Sunset though is that it clashes really nicely with the green power armour, so helps to stand out even more. Okay, next up will be the tongue of the Nurgling. For this I'll be using Screamer Pink. It's a smaller detail than just about everything else that we've painted. A good tip when trying to be neat is to brace your painting hand against something. There are a few ways to do this, but I'll show you two that are more common. Firstly, you can try and keep your wrists next to each other like this, and you'll find that your hands are far more steady. The next method is to brace some of your fingers of your painting hand against either the painting handle or your other hand. This is the method that I do. I find that if I brace my fingers like this, they act like little pivot points for me and I keep my hands nice and steady. Screamer Pink has really made those fleshy bits come to life and look awesome. Plague Marines are so much fun to paint. We're now going to use Corax White to paint all of the little fungal infection-like details that we can see coming out of the armour and on various other details of the model. Again, these are smaller than most other details, so take your time with this process and be as neat as you can be. Right, with those done, just a few more base coats to go. Next up, we'll be painting the base itself as well as the loincloth. For these we'll use Catachan Flesh. This will help to tie it in with our Space Marine kill team and make it look like both kill teams are fighting in the same area. Little details like these really go a long way in telling a story and bring out the character in your models. Once the base is done, then we just need to pick out the loincloth as well. Okay, one more base coat to go. Our final detail to base coat will be the rock that our Plague Marine is stood on. Just the same as with our Space Marine Captain, we'll paint the rock with Mechanicus Standard Grey. And there we go, our Plague Marine is fully base coated and looks great. Now to move on to the shading phase. I'm using Carroburg Crimson shade paint and I'm painting this over the nurgling and fungal infection details that I painted earlier. Just like before when using a shade paint, do each area at a time and watch out for any pooling. If you see any, dry off your brush and soak up the excess paint. The next shade paint is Agrax Earthshade, and I'm using this to go over all of the rest of the details on the model, including the base. I need to avoid any areas where I've used Carroburg Crimson and remember to paint in sections and look out for pooling. With the rest of the details covered, I'm now going to leave the model to dry for around 30 minutes. When it's completely dried, I'll use Abaddon Black to paint the rim of the base. You can also paint the rest of your Plague Marine kill team using these steps. Right, just like before, I'm going to show you the next two optional stages. So, the next up is adding a highlight. I'll be dry brush highlighting the power armor with Ogryn Camo. Take your time working around the model, highlighting all of the green power armor. Finally, we're on to the last stage where I'll add some extra detail to the base. Like the Angels of Death kill team, our Plague Marine base is sculpted with some awesome details on it already. So all I'll be doing is adding some tufts onto it. And with that last optional stage done, my Plague Marine is now fully ready for battle and is looking awesome.
In this video, we've shown you how to paint the Angels of Death and Plague Marines kill teams so that you can get them on the game board in no time at all. We've had a lot of fun with this video and we hope that it's given you the inspiration to get your own kill teams painted. Well, that's all from me. To find out more about our fantastic paints, head over to citadelcolor.com. You can also find more tutorials using our paints on our YouTube channel. And if you need more help, head over to one of our Warhammer stores where our friendly staff will be more than happy to help. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this video and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye!